What if a child walked only a few houses away, on the safest night of the year, and never came back? What if the danger was not hiding in the dark streets, but living right next door? And what if the person no one suspected was smiling the entire time? This is real. This happened in America, and the truth is more disturbing than anyone imagined. It was October 31st, 1973, Halloween night. The air was cold in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Leaves were scattered across the sidewalks. Porch lights were glowing. Children were laughing. Candy bags were filling up. 9-year-old Lisa in French was excited. She wore her Halloween costume proudly. She carried a small bag for candy. She stepped outside with the simple joy only a child can have. Her parents were not worried. This was their neighborhood. They knew the streets. They knew the houses. They knew the people. She was not going far, just door to door, just trick or treat, just a normal night. But sometimes, evil does not look like evil. Sometimes, it looks ordinary. Just a few houses away lived a young man named Gerald Turner. He was 22 years old, quiet, soft-spoken, not someone people talked about, not someone people feared. He was just another neighbor. That night, his porch light was on. That meant candy. That meant welcome. That meant safe. Lisa walked toward his house. She knocked on the door, and he answered. We don't know exactly what he said. Maybe he smiled. Maybe he spoke kindly. Maybe he told her to come inside. But we know this. She went inside, and that was the last time anyone saw her alive. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Halloween nights can be busy. Children move slowly from house to house. They stop to talk. They compare costumes. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Her parents looked at the clock. She should have been home by now. They stepped outside. They called her name. Lisa, no answer. They walked down the street. They asked neighbors, have you seen her? Some said yes, earlier. Some said no. But no one knew where she was now. The air began to feel different. The fun of Halloween faded. Fear slowly replaced it. Police were called. Officers arrived quickly. Flashlights turned on. Neighbors came out of their homes. Everyone began searching. They looked behind bushes. They checked yards. They called her name into the cold night. The entire neighborhood joined together. People believed she would be found. Maybe she was hiding. Maybe she got lost. Maybe she was scared. No one wanted to imagine anything worse. No one wanted to think that danger had been so close. While the community searched outside, inside one quiet house, a terrible crime had already taken place. Behind closed walls, away from the lights and voices, Gerald Turner had attacked the child who trusted him. Court records later showed the horrifying truth. He assaulted her. Then he ended her life. A 9-year-old girl. On Halloween night. After that, he placed her small body into a garbage bag. He tried to think. He tried to plan. He needed to get rid of the evidence. Outside, people were calling her name. Inside, he was hiding what he had done. Hours passed. The search continued. Police officers moved house to house. They knocked on doors. They asked questions. Eventually, they reached his house. Turner spoke calmly. He did not look nervous. He did not look afraid. He acted normal. He told them he had seen nothing unusual. He blended in, like any other neighbor. But evil often hides in calm faces. Later, under the darkness of night, he carried the garbage bag away from his house. He walked to a nearby field. He left her there, alone, cold, silent. The next day, the search became even bigger. More police arrived. More volunteers joined. The story spread across the town. A missing 9-year-old girl. On Halloween, it did not feel real. Hours later, her body was discovered in a field. The worst fear of every parent became reality. The neighborhood that once felt safe now felt broken. Police quickly focused on Gerald Turner. Evidence connected him. Witnesses had seen Lisa near his house. The timeline did not match his story. When questioned again, the calm mask began to crack. Eventually, the truth came out. He confessed. The same neighbor, who lived just a few houses away, was the killer. Shock spread across Fond du Lac. People could not believe it. He was right there, so close, so normal. The man who opened his door that night had destroyed a family forever. Trust in the neighborhood was shattered. Parents who once felt safe now looked at every house differently. Lisa in French was only 9 years old. Her life ended on a night meant for laughter. Her name became a painful memory, and the town would never see Halloween the same way again. Because sometimes, the real monster does not wear a costume. Sometimes, he lives next door. The morning after Halloween did not feel like morning at all. It felt heavy, silent, wrong. The laughter from the night before had disappeared. Candy wrappers still lay on sidewalks. Pumpkins still sat on porches. But the joy was gone. In a quiet field near Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, police officers stood in a circle. In the cold air, under a gray sky, they found her. 9-year-old Lisa in French. The search was over, but the nightmare had just begun. Word spread quickly through the town. Parents held their children tighter. Schools felt different. Teachers spoke softly. Neighbors whispered in small groups. How could this happen here? This was not a big city. This was not a dangerous place. This was a neighborhood. Police began working immediately. They needed answers. They retraced her steps from the night before. They knocked on every door again. They asked every question again. When was the last time you saw her? What time did you see her? Was she alone? Did she go inside any house? Slowly, one detail became important. Several children remembered seeing Lisa near one specific house. The house of Gerald Turner. At first, it did not seem shocking. Many children stopped there. It was Halloween. Doors were opening everywhere. But then police looked closer. Turner had told officers he did not see anything unusual. He said he handed out candy. He said nothing strange happened. He said he did not remember Lisa coming inside. But witnesses began to contradict him. Some children said they saw Lisa go toward his door. One said she went inside. Now, the timeline started to break. Police returned to his house. This time, their questions were sharper. Turner tried to stay calm. He answered slowly. He avoided eye contact. He repeated his story. But small cracks appeared. Investigators noticed inconsistencies. The time he claimed to stop giving candy did not match what neighbors said. His behavior seemed controlled, too controlled. Police asked if they could search his house. Inside, they looked carefully. Rooms were quiet. Furniture was normal. Nothing looked obviously wrong. But evil rarely leaves obvious signs. Investigators continued asking questions. They pressed harder, and pressure changes people. Turner's calm face slowly changed. Sweat formed on his forehead. His answers became shorter. He asked for breaks. He tried to avoid direct responses. Finally, after hours of questioning, something shifted. He realized the evidence was closing in. Witnesses, timelines, details that did not match. And then, he confessed. The words came out. He admitted that Lisa came into his house. He admitted he attacked her. He admitted he ended her life. A community's worst fear was now confirmed. It was not a stranger driving through town. It was not someone from far away. It was a neighbor, 22 years old, living just a few houses away. Police documented every detail carefully. According to official records, he assaulted her inside his home. Afterward, he placed her body into a garbage bag. Later that night, he carried it to a nearby field and left her there. Cold, alone. When news of the confession spread, shock turned into anger. How could no one see this? How could someone so quiet hide something so dark? People replayed every past interaction in their minds. Did he ever seem strange? Did he ever say something unusual? Did anyone notice warning signs? But often, the most dangerous individuals appear completely ordinary. The court process began soon after. The courtroom was filled with tension. Lisa's family sat quietly. Grief does not always scream. Sometimes it just sits in silence. Turner faced the judge. He did not look like a monster. That was what disturbed many people the most. He looked like a normal young man, but his actions told a different story. The prosecution presented the evidence clearly. Witness statements, timeline reconstruction, confession details. The defense had little to argue. The facts were heavy. The jury listened carefully. Every word mattered. For Lisa's family, every second felt endless. Nothing could bring her back. Nothing could erase that Halloween night. Eventually, the verdict came. Guilty. Justice, in the legal sense, was delivered. Turner was sentenced to life in prison. But even life imprisonment could not repair the damage. For the French family, life would never return to normal. A bedroom remained empty. A chair at the table remained unused. Birthdays became painful reminders. Holidays felt incomplete. Fond du Lac also changed. Parents became more protective. Halloween rules became stricter. Children were told not to enter homes. Doors were no longer seen as automatically safe. Trust had been broken. Psychologists later explained something important about crimes like this. Often, offenders are not strangers hiding in shadows. They are familiar faces. They understand routines. They understand trust. They use normalcy as camouflage. Gerald Turner did not look dangerous. He blended in, and that is what made it worse. Years passed, but the name Lisa and French remained in local memory. A reminder that safety can never be taken for granted. A reminder that evil does not always announce itself. Sometimes it answers the door politely. Sometimes it smiles. And sometimes it lives next door. Time moved forward. But for many people in Fond du Lac, it did not feel like it. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. But the memory of Halloween 1973 never faded. The town tried to return to normal. Children went back to school. Parents went back to work. Stores reopened their doors. But something invisible had changed. Trust was thinner. Silence was heavier. And every parent carried a quiet fear inside. Inside prison walls, Gerald Turner began serving his life sentence. Prison is not freedom, but it is also not the end of thought. People often ask a question after crimes like this. Why? Why would a young man, only 22 years old, living in a normal neighborhood, do something so horrific? There's no simple answer. Court psychologists studied him. They tried to understand his behavior. They looked into his past. They searched for warning signs. Reports suggested he was socially withdrawn, quiet, isolated. He did not have many close relationships. But isolation alone does not create a killer. Many quiet people live peaceful lives. What made him different? Experts often explain that certain offenders struggle with distorted thinking. They see control where there should be respect. They see power where there should be protection. They feel urges that they do not fight. And when those urges grow without intervention, they can turn into actions. Halloween night gave him opportunity. A child walking alone. A door opening. A moment with no supervision. Crimes like this often happen in seconds of decision. A choice made. A boundary crossed. A life destroyed. In prison, Turner had time to think. Time can be cruel. It forces reflection. But reflection does not always equal regret. Some inmates express remorse. Some remain silent. Public records do not describe dramatic apologies. There was no emotional public breakdown. No powerful speech asking forgiveness. Only the cold reality of a life sentence. Meanwhile, outside prison walls, Lisa's family carried a different sentence. A lifetime of grief. Her parents had to wake up every morning knowing their daughter would never grow older. They would never see her graduate. Never see her drive. Never see her build a future. Her childhood ended at 9. For a parent, that pain does not disappear. It changes shape, but it never leaves. The community also changed its behavior permanently. Before 1973, children often entered homes during trick-or-treating. After Lisa's murder, new safety habits formed. Parents walked with their children. Homes were visited more carefully. Rules became stricter. Across America, stories like this slowly influenced how families handled Halloween. Even though this tragedy happened in one town, its impact reached beyond it. Media coverage in the 1970s was not like today. There was no social media, no viral posts, number 24-hour online discussions. But newspapers reported the case. Local television covered it. The image of a missing 9-year-old girl on Halloween stayed in people's minds. For many Americans, it was a wake-up call. Danger does not always come from far away. It can come from someone familiar. Psychologists later studied community trauma. When a crime like this happens in a small town, the impact spreads outward like ripples in water. Children become more cautious. Parents become more protective. Neighbors become more observant. But sometimes there is also guilt. People wonder, could we have noticed something? Could we have stopped it? Did we miss warning signs? The painful truth is that some crimes leave no clear warning. Turner had not been known as violent in the neighborhood. He was not publicly threatening. He did not appear unstable. He was ordinary, and that ordinariness became the most disturbing part. Years turned into decades. New families moved into Fond du Lac. New children grew up, but older residents still remembered. They remembered the search, the flashlights in the dark, the hope slowly turning into fear. They remembered when police cars lined the street. They remembered the day the truth came out. For Lisa's classmates, the memory followed them into adulthood. When they became parents themselves, they were more cautious. They told their children stories about safety. They warned them about going inside strangers' homes, even if the stranger was a neighbor. The case also became part of a larger conversation in America about child safety. Schools began teaching stranger danger. Parents became more involved in neighborhood activities. Community watch programs slowly became more common. One tragedy influenced countless small changes. Inside prison, Turner aged. Time does not stop for anyone. His youth faded behind bars, while Lisa remained forever 9 years old. That contrast is one of the most haunting parts of cases like this. The offender grows older. The victim never does. Every Halloween, flowers were sometimes placed in Lisa's memory, not as a public spectacle, but as a quiet act of remembrance. Because some names deserve to be remembered, not for how they died, but for who they were. A child, full of life, excited about candy and costumes, trusting, innocent. Her story became more than just a crime. It became a reminder that vigilance matters, a reminder that safety conversations are necessary, a reminder that even peaceful neighborhoods are not immune to darkness. And yet, despite everything, life continued. Children still dressed up for Halloween. Pumpkins still glowed on porches. But now, parents walked a little closer beside their kids. Doors were opened with more awareness, and trust was no longer automatic. Because once a community learns that evil can live next door, it never completely forgets. Years passed, then more years. Fond du Lac slowly rebuilt its sense of normal life. But rebuilding does not mean forgetting. For the French family, time did not erase the pain. Grief does not follow a straight line. Some days feel manageable. Other days feel impossible. Birthdays were the hardest. Every year, October 31st returned, while other families prepared costumes and candy. The French family remembered the last time they saw their daughter alive. Grief experts say something important. When a child is lost suddenly, the parents do not just lose a person. They lose a future. They lose imagined graduations. They lose imagined weddings. They lose imagined grandchildren. The mind keeps replaying what if. What if she had skipped that house? What if someone had walked with her? What if they had called her back sooner? But what if does not change reality. It only deepens the silence. The community also carried invisible scars. In small towns, people often trust easily. Neighbors borrow tools. Children play together freely. Doors stay unlocked. After 1973, something shifted. Parents became more protective. Children were given strict instructions. Never enter a house. Stay with friends. Come home immediately. Schools began reinforcing safety lessons. Teachers talked about awareness. Police officers visited classrooms to explain basic safety rules. It was not about fear. It was about prevention. Over time, Halloween traditions across America changed. Parents began walking with children more often. Neighborhood watch programs grew stronger. Candy inspections became common. While this case was not the only reason for these changes, stories like this influenced the culture. One tragedy can shape habits for generations. Psychologists later describe crimes like this as community trauma events. When something shocking happens in a safe environment, it breaks a mental boundary. People realize safety is not automatic. They learn that trust must include caution. For some residents of Fond du Lac, therapy became necessary, especially for children who had searched that night. Some of them remembered holding flashlights, calling Lisa's name, believing she would answer. When the truth came out, many felt a deep emotional shock. Not only sadness, but betrayal. The idea that the person responsible lived just a few houses away was difficult to accept. Betrayal trauma can be powerful. It changes how people see others. It changes how they judge risk. And sometimes it creates long-term anxiety. Yet, despite everything, the town did not collapse. Communities often grow stronger after tragedy. Neighbors talked more openly. Parents connected more closely. People looked out for each other in new ways. Lisa's name was not forgotten. She was remembered as a child who loved simple joys. Friends described her as cheerful, full of energy, excited about holidays. Her memory slowly shifted from being only about the crime to being about who she was. That shift is important because victims deserve to be remembered as people, not only headlines. Meanwhile, inside prison, Gerald Turner remained incarcerated. Life sentences meantime continues quietly. Years stack on top of years. He grew older behind bars. The outside world changed. Technology advanced. Generations moved forward. But his world stayed confined. There's something haunting about that contrast. The world moves forward. But for one family, time froze on Halloween night. Legal scholars sometimes discuss cases like this in broader conversations about criminal psychology. They analyze patterns, opportunity-based crimes, power and control behavior, the importance of early intervention for troubling behavior. Some experts argue that better mental health awareness can prevent certain crimes. Others believe that some individuals hide dangerous thoughts so well that detection becomes nearly impossible. There is no easy formula, but each case becomes part of a larger study of human behavior. As decades passed, newer residents of Fond du Lac sometimes heard the story from older neighbors. It became part of local history, a painful chapter, but also a lesson. Every town has stories. Some are joyful, some are tragic. This one became both. Tragic in its loss, meaningful in its impact. Every Halloween, parents still guide their children carefully. Some may not even know the full details of 1973, but they follow safety habits shaped by past events. That is how history works. Even when names fade from headlines, lessons remain. The French family continued their lives quietly. Grief does not end, but people learn to carry it. They honor memory in private ways. Photographs kept safe. Stories shared within the family. Moments of silence. In time, the story of Lisa and French became more than a crime story. It became a reminder of innocence, a reminder of vigilance, and a reminder that communities must protect their most vulnerable members. Because sometimes the greatest danger is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not look like a villain in a movie. Sometimes it looks like a neighbor, a normal face, a familiar voice. And that truth is what makes this story so chilling. There are some stories that fade with time, and there are some that never do. The story of 9-year-old Lisa and French is one that never truly disappeared. Because it was not just about a crime. It was about trust. It was about innocence. It was about a simple knock on a neighbor's door. And how, in a single moment, everything changed. When people think about Halloween, they imagine laughter. They imagine children running from house to house. They imagine bright costumes and glowing pumpkins. But in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, October 31st, 1973, became something else. It became a reminder that safety must never be assumed. A reminder that danger does not always announce itself. A reminder that evil can look completely ordinary. Lisa left her house with excitement. She expected candy. She expected smiles. She expected to come home. Her parents expected to see her walk back through the door. But that door never opened again. The man responsible, Gerald Turner, remains one of the darkest parts of this story. Not because of how he looked, not because of how he spoke, but because of what he chose to do. His crime shocked a town, but it also forced a nation to think differently about child safety. In the years that followed, parents across America became more cautious. They walked with their children. They created rules about not entering homes. They taught safety conversations earlier. Without realizing it, many of those changes were influenced by tragedies like this one. But beyond policy changes, Beyond safety rules, there's something deeper. There's the memory of a child. Lisa was more than a headline. She was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a classmate, a little girl excited about Halloween night. Her life ended at 9, but her story continues. Sometimes the most powerful legacy is not revenge. It is awareness. It is prevention. It is making sure another child does not face the same fate. And yet, there is still one question that always remains. How could someone so close be so dangerous? Psychologists still study cases like this. They try to understand the hidden warning signs. They examine how offenders blend into communities. They discuss how opportunity and secrecy combine. But even with research, even with analysis, some answers remain incomplete. Because human behavior is complex, darkness does not always show itself clearly. And that is what makes this case so unsettling. The monster did not wear a mask that night. He did not hide in an alley. He did not chase from the shadows. He opened his door. He spoke calmly. He appeared normal. And that normal appearance became the most frightening detail of all. As decades passed, the world changed. Technology advanced. News became faster. Social media began spreading crime stories instantly. But back in 1973, the shock moved slowly through newspapers and television reports. Still, the impact was just as powerful. For the people who lived it, time did not reduce the memory. Every Halloween still carries a quiet reflection. For some, it is a moment of silence. For others, it is a lesson passed down to children. Stay close. Stay aware. Stay safe. Because history teaches us something important. Evil is not always dramatic. It is not always obvious. Sometimes it is patient. Sometimes it waits for opportunity. And sometimes it lives next door. But there is another side to this story. The strength of a community. The love of a family. The power of remembrance. Fond du Lac did not let fear define it forever. It learned. It adapted. It protected its children more carefully. It honored Lisa not by living in fear, but by living with awareness. That is the balance every community must find. Not paranoia, not blindness, but cautious compassion. This case also reminds us of something deeply human. Children trust easily. They believe adults will protect them. They believe neighbors are safe. That trust is beautiful, and protecting that trust is the responsibility of every adult. Lisa's story forces us to ask hard questions. Are we paying attention? Are we creating safe environments? Are we teaching awareness without creating fear? Because safety is not just a rule. It is a culture, and culture changes when lessons are learned. Gerald Turner will spend his life behind bars. Time will continue moving forward. But Lisa will remain 9 years old in memory, forever smiling, forever excited for Halloween night, forever a reminder of how precious life truly is. Some stories end with justice. Some end with answers. This one ends with reflection. Reflection about trust. Reflection about vigilance. Reflection about protecting the innocent. Because sometimes the scariest part of a horror story is not the darkness. It is the realization that the danger was always closer than anyone imagined. And that is why this story still matters. Not just as a crime, but as a lesson. A lesson written in the quiet streets of Fond du Lac. A lesson carried through generations. A lesson that reminds us to look carefully, to protect fiercely, and to never assume that safety is automatic. Because sometimes the real monster doesn't need a costume.